Hello, storytellers. Welcome back to the fourth episode of Crossroads, the third interview, but fourth episode. Today we have a filmmaker on the podcast, Dan Brothers, who's from Northampton. I'm really excited for you to listen to this conversation. It was super insightful. He's such a humble guy, and his film Legacy comes out in the fall. We're going to talk about that, among other things, his history with theater and his journey of writing and directing and all of the challenges he's overcome. So I hope you guys enjoy the fourth episode of Crossroads, and be sure to give it a like, share it with someone that you love, share it with a storyteller that you love, that you're passionate about, and let's get right into the podcast. What is going on, storytellers? My name is Donovan, and I am the host of Crossroads. Today, we have a very fun guest on the podcast from the UK. He's a director, a writer, an actor, and he is working on a film right now that is set to release in the fall called Legacy. We are very excited to have Dan Brothers on the podcast today, Northampton local, and I'm really just excited to chat with you today about storytelling, chat with you about Legacy, about all your fun, feature films, your books, everything that you've written. It's just amazing, all the work that you've done, and I'm just really excited to talk about it and have you on here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry to get you out of bed relatively early in America.
No, it's really no big deal. It's only 9, almost 30 here, so it's
Yeah,
whatever. I usually get up
not
around
too
8
bad.
anyways, so no, it's not bad at all. But yeah, thanks for making the time to be on here. Let's get right into it. That's the best way to get started. So the something that I really like to do with every one of my guests is just kind of come right out with a very broad and general question. And that question would be, what is storytelling to you, and how do you use filmmaking, your medium, to tell your story? It's a very broad question, but it's just something that I like to ask.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the fundamental of the reason why I like to tell stories is if it can impact somebody, and it doesn't have to make them happy, it doesn't have to make them sad, it doesn't have to make them cry or joy. It just has to impact them in some way. And if you can do that, I think you're you're doing something right. So I think
Hmm.
in all the films that I've written or books that I've written, whatever it might be, I try and think about how the end user feels rather than what I want to create, how I want
Okay.
it, how you receiving that content feel, if that makes sense. Um,
Okay.
so if you can do that, I think it's not profound. It's just a much better way of doing it rather than doing. Some people write the story from a selfish point of view because they want it to be out there, they want to make money
Mm.
from it, whatever it might be. But
Hmm.
if you write it because you want the end user to enjoy the experience, then I think it's quite different what you end up with.
Oh wow. So your take on storytelling, and especially what you do in your profession and your craft, is more based around how the audience member feels rather than the storyteller might feel, even though of course you're going to feel something from whatever you create. Like, you're going to be passionate about the film or the book you're writing, but it's really about getting the message in your story to the audience member and having them feel a certain way, leaving them with a certain feeling or a certain I guess just impacting, like you were saying. So that's that's a take on storytelling I haven't quite heard yet, even off the podcast, just talking to people in my community.
Yeah.
So it's something that I really like, though, because I feel like a lot of times, even like especially for smaller creators, it can turn into somewhat of a selfish thing. And of course, make yourself happy, do what you love. That's not being selfish. And I think that it gets misconstrued sometimes. So I like the way that you put that. And yeah, I think it's great.
But if you to look at so many series, and in the US you'll have it as well, where they drag it on for 3 or 4 series longer than perhaps that show would run for, and it's because they've signed a contract or they've got
Yeah.
some reason they have to continue to do it. And actually, if you did it and said to the audience, "Look, do you think we should leave it at series 6?" They'd probably go, "Yeah, leave it there. It's a really good way to end it." But they drag it
Yeah.
on because they've got a contract to fulfill, and it doesn't become fun anymore. It doesn't become exciting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, there's plenty of series that I've watched like the first season of, and then continued, and it's just, you can tell that the idea just kind of loses itself in the length of it, like just trying to stretch out the story, or just take something that just is kind of, I don't know, that just doesn't seem right in the world of that they've created in this work, and they just stretch it on as long as possible so that they can make an extra million or whatever it might be for the studio. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's an important, thing to remember, and important thing to be reminded of as a creator, as a filmmaker, is that your passion is in it and you're trying to bring it to an audience member, but whatever you're trying to bring, whatever impact you want to make, can be done in like the initial project that you do. It can be made in that initial project, and it doesn't have to be continued and stretched out super long. So that's
No.
awesome. Yeah. So you've got a couple of books out there. You've got a couple of just works. I did a little bit of research. I found you actually on Amazon. So Dan Brothers on Amazon as an author. I saw Mr. Hyde, The Untold Story, and 13th Day of Christmas. Before we get into talking about the new feature film that you're coming out with this fall, I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit about the inspiration, especially for Mr. Hyde, The Untold Story, because it's obviously a classic story. It's a classic tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I wanted to know kind of what inspired you to tell your take on this untold story, because obviously you said it's untold. So of course it was something that you thought of, and you felt like it was a story that needed to be told. So my question to you is what inspired that story, that take on the classic tale, and I mean, what did that journey look like from start to finish of creating that book?
Well, I'm always intrigued about the battle of good versus evil, and what if roles were as reversed, or what if someone got the wrong end of the stick through all these years of telling the story? What if, because if you look at the actual history of Jekyll and Hyde, Dr. Jekyll was a womanizer, he was an alcoholic, wasn't a great man at all. But because he was a doctor, he had an upstanding place in the community. So
Yeah.
kind of come up with this story that actually, whenever anything went wrong, he could blame this alter ego of his, and claim it wasn't his fault. But how does the ego feel about it? So I created a story about him. Mr. Hyde is the one who's locked away, can't get out, can't express himself in any way, shape, or form, um, and it becomes quite a powerful story of actually Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde is the good guy, and Dr. Jekyll's the bad guy. How does that work out? How does it unfold? Um, so we created the book because we wanted to script it into a film, which is currently underway, scripting that at the moment. Um,
Wonderful.
so the idea was to get a bit of awareness out there, and then hopefully, by the time the film comes out, people have read it. But I just really like old classic stories, Knights of the Round Table, um, Sherlock Holmes, or all these really old, good stories that you can recreate into something more modern, like what was done with Sherlock. I don't know if you have it over there, but the great actor called Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I've seen the series.
yes, and it's an amazing modern take on the series. So I love stuff like that where you can retell an old tale. People think, "Oh, I've heard that. Let's see the adaptation." It's actually something different that people have seen before.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's constantly retelling of these classic stories. People are creating films out of like old Christmas tales and just kind of old folklore. And I mean, there's that film The Northman that just came out.
Yes,
Robert
yeah,
Eggers, that just kind of the take on like the old the Viking, just like the grittiness. And it's I mean, you can take anything from the past and just kind of spin it into a new story to be told to a modern audience. So I love what you're doing there with that story. And I also love what you said about the battle between good and evil, just being a sucker for those kinds of stories. You know, someone that likes that battle. You know, Star Wars, you've got the good and evil in every story. So, but that one in particular is very interesting because it's the same person that's battling like inner you know, just turmoil and inner conflict, and it's very cool. But it's really awesome also that you decided to write this just to kind of get some awareness for the film that you guys are creating. And you said that that one is on the way. So like what stage in the process are you guys in? Have you started filming? Are you in post? Like where are you guys at with that
No,
project?
that's very much at script level. We've
Okay.
sort of got the script ready, and we just need to start the next stage really is to start putting through for some funding, so we can actually do a really good job of it. The films we've done so far have been zero funded, so which is really, as a filmmaker is really tough,
Oh yeah.
as everyone will tell you. So, but no, we just want to get a budget behind this one. So the next stage really is applying to a few places trying to get the funding for it.
Awesome. Now, creating a film out of zero budget, so just not having anything. I mean, even you have some assets like, you know, resources like cameras, actors, like you've got what you need a little bit, or like the things that you truly just like can't live without in a film. What does that like? I don't know. What does that battle look like for completing a film with no funding? Like what kind of challenges do you face as a filmmaker with, I mean, even when you do have a budget and it's a smaller budget, you still have to work with what you've got, and you've got to, I mean, you have to work with what you got. You don't have money.
Mm.
You don't have the most resources. So what does that battle look like? You know, challenges. How did you overcome that sort of maybe discouragement from maybe not getting funding or not having the funding, and you're like, dang, I can't do this because I don't have the money to actually, you know, make this scene a reality, because that, you know, that's a thing all the time.
Um, I actually think it's better to have no money than it is to have a bit of money. Because if you've got a small fund, you have to choose where to spend that, and that's
Hmm.
a really difficult decision as a filmmaker. Because what do you make really good, and what do you just leave as quite average? Uh, so I was actually relieved that we didn't sort of someone said, "Oh, you know, I'll give you a £5 fund," and you have to sort of, what do I spend that on? Which bit's going to be really good. It's taken a lot of favours, if I'm really honest, and a lot of goodwill from a lot of really, really good people.
Hmm.
I've got some fantastic people around us doing this, fantastic DOP. Uh, the actors and the favours that we're getting from those actors are is incredible. Uh, my manager, Sci, has got an awful lot of working to get some people on board for us, and it has been a lot of goodwill and favours in the hope that, in all honesty, it gets picked up. Then make a bit of royalty out of it, and we can go on to do a second and a third one. We've got a sequel and a prequel in the works to sort of, if it goes well, to start stick off as well. Um, so the biggest thing, I guess, is a massive thank you to everyone else. I guess the battle is time, because if you're not paying someone for their time, you're squeezing it into such a small window
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
opportunity, and as soon as something else comes along that gets closed because it's not as much as they like you and want to do you a favour, if something comes along that's more important, then they go and do that, and they absolutely should. Uh,
Huh.
so that's the hardest thing, is getting people. We have a day of filming. We must have 40 to 50 people down in one day through 7 different scenes, and trying to orchestrate that was a logistical nightmare.
Okay.
And then there's and the scenes are complicated as well, because there's scenes where people, there's got not special effects, but you've got blood and gore and everything else going on, gunfire, and you sort of think, how am I going to do all of this in one day? So it's time consuming, it's hard, and it's um, relying on a lot of other people to really pull it out of the bag for you. But
Hmm.
everyone has just done amazing. I'm really, really happy with how it's gone so far. Got a
Yeah.
few scenes left.
Few scenes left of Legacy to film.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Okay.
there's 3 days we've got to do, and then it'll be
Okay.
done and in post production, ready for
Nice.
release. The autumn or the
Wonderful.
fall, as you call it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The what you said about community is it's so important. Like the community of like the people, the actors that you have, the DOP. I mean, everybody that you have involved in the project that are there on set. It's really just so important to get them motivated and encouraged to continue with a work that they're not getting paid for, or a work that they might be getting paid little for. It's really because you're a human and you empathize with them, you sympathize with them. They're spending their day to work with you, and it's it's an amazing thing. It's really nice that they decide to do that for you. But I'm sure that it's kind of like a battle, like a struggle, just knowing that you've got them on the set, and you're like, I'm not paying you, but I'm glad you're here because you have faith in the project, and that's really what we're all in it for. Of course, we'd love to make some money from it because we all have our bills to pay, but if the passion is there and you've got everybody kind of encouraged on this one set idea of this film, then it really, the fact that you're not paying them is like, it matters, but it doesn't, because they're all
Yeah,
there just because they love what they're doing. They love the people they're working with. Like you were talking about, all the favors that have been done for you is amazing. So I love to, just community is so important. Just like having good connections, obviously that's important, but it's just better to be a good person at the end of the day on set. It's better to have good intentions always. So that's awesome. I'm glad that you guys have a passionate group, a passionate crew that are working on this film. So I mean, might as well just talk a little bit about legacy now. So this is a film. I'd love for you to just give us, like, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute overview of what the film is about. And then I'd love to hear how that project started, how that, began. Because I didn't see a book for this one. I'm not sure if you wrote one, if published a book, called Legacy. I didn't see it, but if you did, awesome. I'd love to hear about where that, story came from, and just kind of get like a little overview about it, a little short summary, if you will.
yeah. Okay, so the summary changes every time I tell it. It's centered around a gangster family. It's sort of like a modern day gangster film around the
Okay.
Savior family. Uh, they have a lot of money, a lot of businesses, and they run the city. And the film is centered around the challenges that we face in terms of people trying to take the money, trying to bring them down, take over businesses, kill them. So it's just about the struggles of this poor old rich gangster family who are constantly being attacked from all angles, and how it ends up. So it's yeah, the family, the two brothers and the dad, sort of the main family centered around. And you've got three or four other parties, if you like, who've all got their own little backstories, and they all want to get their hands on the money for various reasons.
Mm.
So it's it's quite a fun concept if you imagine something between a modern day Peaky Blinders, and
Okay.
good old fashioned mobster film somewhere in there.
Wonderful. That sounds like, I mean, just sounds like a lot of fun. I love a good
Yeah,
mobster movie. Like, The Godfather, The Irishman, all those Italian, families.
yeah,
I mean, there's just so many of them, but this sounds like a unique project. So that's awesome. Are you acting in this one?
yeah. So I wrote the script quite a while ago, whilst the last film was still in development actually, and I'd written this down and thought uh, we need to get casting for it. So we cast, put all the roles out there, and I just couldn't find anyone to play this one role. How I'd written it, how I could see it being
Mm-hmm.
done. So I thought, it sort of came down to that I would do it, and it's only 3 or 4 scenes, but I wanted it to be a very specific sort of person. So I'm probably the only person who understands it well enough to do that role, without paying someone a fortune to take it on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm doing only 4 scenes directing. I've got a really good director, Rowan, who's helping me. So he helps direct the scenes that I'm in, so I'm not directing myself. So yeah, it's a really nice to be involved on that side of it as well as behind the camera.
Yeah. Are you I know you have some theater experience, before kind of filmmaking began. I believe I read, Of Mice and Men and Lady Killers.
Yes, yeah.
So you have some theater experience prior to, starting your career as a director, and as a writer. If I'm wrong on anything, just correct me. I'm not sure if you wrote before all this, but I have some theater experience. I did theater in high school, and I just loved performing. I loved like the live theater, just having it's just an adventure every night. Every time you're going out there, you never really know what to expect. Someone might forget a line. You got to like kind of fix things as you go. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'd love to talk a little bit more about the theater, but I want to continue talking about legacy. Just so that, because obviously, I brought you on here so you could kind of promote that. I would love for people to actually see it and get to, be part of the hype of it so that they can watch it when it comes out. So Legacy is a film that you said you wrote a while ago, or a little while ago. And was that just kind of inspired by do you like mobster stories? You like that kind of, the darker family type of, there's someone's always out to get the money and that kind of thing, Medici family, if you will.
Um, Not really. I think it came from, so my previous film, which we'll talk about in a bit, is 13th Day of Christmas, and that
Yeah.
was centered around two brothers. And I had a vision in my head that I wanted one of the brothers to get thrown off a rooftop, and we didn't get to it. It just wouldn't work in the film and everything else. And it came to, I had this scene still written out that someone was on a rooftop and got thrown off, and there was an argument and all that. And I thought, how can I fit that into a film and a project? And I had some other scenes. I tend to write down scenes I want to see, and then I try and patch it into a film. Um,
Okay.
so this idea of a gangster mob film was the only way I could incorporate the three things I had in my head into a film. And then it developed, and I thought, well, let's give somebody else in can come and do that, and that can be a backstory, and pulled it all together from there, really. So we think it'll be about an hour and a half long. Um, it's a as you said earlier on, some of the things we've said, we can't quite achieve what we want to do on that. I think one thing I've learned about low budget filmmaking is if you can't make it good, don't do it. Don't try and do something badly. Just sort of let the audience imagine. For example, we throw in someone off a rooftop, we're not going to see them fall all the way down because you just can't get that effect without all the stuff. And,
You don't want to hurt anybody either.
some people, no, you don't. Um, so you kind of have to leave it to the audience's imagination that you see someone get dropped and then you see them hit the floor. You've kind of got to fill in the middle bit, and it's easier for audiences to do that. Look at it and go, "Oh, that looks terrible." So little things that we've learned along the way from our last one, and it has, from what I've seen, I haven't seen the whole edit. Jason's looking after all that. Did a really, really fantastic job of it. From what I've seen so far, I'm really happy with the outcome.
Good. And which project is that he's editing right now?
Legacy. So we're sort of
Okay.
editing as we go, doing scene by
Okay.
scene.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of how you got to do it. If you got like a date, you want to try to get it out. I was part of a film. I was actually going to be composing a film, the film composing for some friends from Orlando, but then one of them moved to LA. The project kind of dispersed a little bit, and I'd love to continue working on that one, but for right now, it's kind of paused.
Mm.
But they were editing as they went, shooting as they went, just because as a low budget filmmaker, that's kind of what you got to do.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have the full story prepared, I mean, you have the full story prepared, but you don't have the full vision completely there and done and filmed and ready. It's just time is of the essence, as you were saying. You really just have to respect everyone's time that's involved in the project because you're a good person. You respect their time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's great to hear that you respect people's time because not everyone does, especially when it comes to the low budget filmmaking worlds. People are just trying to like squeeze as much as they can out of everyone, just for their own self gain and their own self success. They just want this project to get done so that they can accomplish something, which is great. I want you to accomplish something, but as long as you're going about it in an ethical and a humble way is really important. So yeah, like Legacy. It sounds like a great film. Do you know where we're going to be able to watch that once it does end up coming out?
E- yes and no. So we could definitely get it into certain places, Amazon Prime, YouTube, things like that, if we choose to. And it may still go down the road. We've got a distributor on board who will definitely get it out on DVD and Blu-ray. They're
Wonderful.
actually based in Canada, so the first place that it will go out on DVD, Blu-ray probably will be US and Canada. Um,
Okay.
and then they'll work with distribution companies over here and try and get it out in stores over here. And the strategy is kind of up to individual regions. So Europe, certain parts of Europe might want to do it on demand or on Prime or Netflix, whatever they choose to do. And the UK might choose not to, and then therefore just have it on YouTube or something. So really is down to what the distributors come back with as options. But, it'll definitely you you should definitely be able to get it on DVD and Blu-ray and the early part of next year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I use all the things. I collect Blu-rays, so I will absolutely be. I'd love to, check that out and see when it does come out. I'll grab I'll snag one of them so I can watch it and see Mr. Dan Brothers and his 3 to 4 scenes, in his little mobster film. But that's pretty sick. I'm excited to see that one. I think it's. It's a solid story. You can't really go wrong with a nice classic mobster film. With just the family dynamic. There's always something exciting with the feuds and the money. The money is obviously the main objective for everybody, but that leads to people being extreme and leads to people kind of cutting corners and trying to do what they can to get the money. So it can be, the stakes are really high in all of those movies. So that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And how long? I mean, how long did it take you to write that script?
Um, Not too long actually. I think we were on the back of, like I said, there's quite a few scenes already were done. So you'll have some obvious background to those scenes. So most of it was in my head, so it's done. I just need to get it down on paper. So it was probably quite a quick process of actually finishing the script. So maybe 2 to 3 months of getting it finished because spare time, if you like. But it's yeah, I was sort of happy with when it was done, and then he was just excited. I think I was when you get towards the end of a script writing process, you're more excited to cast it then. So it starts to roll over into actually
Mm,
maybe not all
yeah.
the scenes are 100% done and the shot list is done, but I really want to cast it and I want to see what that person would look like. And it was quite exciting how it evolved when the individual characters got involved.
Yeah, so I know that you're involved with, is it called C Management or SI Management? What's the
Time management, yeah,
Sci Management? Okay, so
that's it.
so Sci Management, is that the way that you like source your casting and everything, or how do you guys go about that? Like I just saw that on your Instagram or your Twitter, and I was like, I mean, what's that? I mean, I'd like to hear more about Sci Management, just kind of how you maybe got involved in that. What if you would recommend for smaller creators like filmmakers to get involved in these firms, because I feel like a lot of people have the passion there and it's awesome, but you also kind of have to have the other side of your brain, your head on straight when it comes to distribution and like strategy and marketing of a film. Look what you're doing right now, the PR for, you're getting some publicity for it, which is great. But so like, what do you think about like firms like that? Obviously, you're involved with them, so I mean, they're great. You're like, oh yeah, they're awesome. But like, what do you think about? Is it logistical? Is it like real for a filmmaker to get involved in a management firm, sign management type of thing?
I think it's down to you. Sty and I met originally because I was an actor, I wanted more jobs, and he uh, did a lot of castings. He got some work, so we spoke, and then when Legacy came along, he obviously helped me. Our first thing was to go to Sty and say, let's fill as many of these roles as we can with the people that we know and trust. That, um, and then we went externally to sort of fill in the gaps that we didn't. So it was very good for that because we already had 6 or 7 people who we knew and trusted, and we knew we could get through Sci Management. Um, and then it sort of opens up other doors by bringing some other people through. Um, getting involved with companies isn't for everyone. Some people want to do it all on their own, and some people want to represent themselves, and that's absolutely fine. Um, I always feel like I'd like to surround myself by the people who know what to do better than I do. There's
Mm,
no point me trying to build a house and there's a builder watching me do it. I'd rather get involved and ask him to help me build the house because then we can get the best result a lot quicker. Um, and the same with this is that Sci Management has got a wealth of experience working with casting companies, celebrities, sports people, whoever it is. So why wouldn't I work with someone who's got some really good contacts? Um,
mm,
why wouldn't I work with someone who's going to be there for me and look after my best interests, which, by the way, someone does? Um, so I think if I didn't do those things, it would be remiss of me and I wouldn't be doing the right thing by my career or by the film. So it, it's not for everyone, but certainly for me, it's been valuable. And we've got more projects coming up in the future, which so I will be a part of, I'm sure.
wonderful. Yeah. I it is up to the individual person. I think that's an important thing to remember for everything. Like, not
Yeah,
only getting involved in a company, but like just style. This your style of shooting, your style of just how you want your actors to portray your characters. It's really all up to the individual person, which is what makes art so beautiful and what makes filmmaking and just creating just beautiful works. Cinematography is great. Directing, casting is great. Everything's great, but it's really up to the individual person how they make that vision come alive. And it's amazing. You see like directors like Wes Anderson who keep their style and they don't stray from it. They have their style. You know what to expect when you're going in to see a Wes Anderson movie. To see some quirkiness and a lot of colors and just like the symmetry, which is amazing. When you're going into a Robert Eggers film, it's going to be very dark and just kind of metaphorical and mysterious. And so it's awesome that every director has their own style. And of course, that's also up to the producers and whoever they cast. So it's really important to have your vision, to plant your seed into your cast so that they can bring that vision alive. They can grow in what your vision is. So it is up to the individual person. Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. I've never really talked to anybody who's part of like a management, so like something like Sci Management. It's really interesting to hear your take on that, just to hear like surrounding yourself with those people that are better than you at what you do. If you're always if you're always doing that, you're eventually going to be quote unquote the best. Now, obviously there
yeah.
is no best, but as long as you're surrounding yourself with the people that are going to support you in what you're doing and also teach you in what you're doing, you really can't go wrong with that. That's what storytelling is all about. It's really all about having everybody's vision come together to tell one cohesive story. And it's amazing how we as humans are able to accomplish that and do that. Like you've already been doing it with the Dr. Jekyll. You've like written a story, you've gotten it filmed. You're starting to get it filmed. You're wanting to get it filmed. 13th Day of Christmas. You wrote it, got it filmed, and you saw that vision come to life through the writing on paper, and then all the way into a film. And I bet that can be that sense, that accomplishment is just so amazing. It's similar to a musician writing a song. They put the song or the album out, and it just feels great. Just describe. I would just love to hear how you would describe that accomplishment that you get from writing a story and then seeing it come to life on the screen.
Um, it's not then that it hits you, if I'm honest. For me, anyway, it's different for everyone, I'm sure. But for me, it was when we were actually filming and I
Mm,
saw those people saying the lines that I'd written
yeah.
in actually on set, and that for me was the bit where I sort of took a step back and go, "Whoa, you thought that to life really, really well." Because by the time it's actually on screen, you watch it on DVD or you watch it in the cinema, then I must admit I'd seen it about 15 times. Um, and I'm not saying the joy had gone from it, but I'd already seen it so many times in production that
Hmm.
actually that moment had passed, if you like, how I felt, and I was sort of already thinking about the next thing. But it was when you're on set watching people do it was the bit where it really got me. And I stood back and went, wow, that's really hard. And humbling to first of all find people who like your story enough to make it, then someone who likes the character enough to take it on and put their own spin on it, then
Hmm.
wants to invest enough of their time to learn all of the lines and and turn up to every shoot and do a really good job for you, and then to find someone who's going to film it and do it all in their own time and edit it for you. You just got that's a huge amount of undertaking for anyone. And if you're not thankful and humble for that, then you should be doing this job, frankly.
Yeah.
It is amazing to see it all come to life and the people, and the process is more complicated than I thought it would be.
Hmm.
Um, but that's a really good learning curve for anyone to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of learning curves, you starting out with theater, right, and acting, enjoying that realm of storytelling. What what planted the seed to want to be a filmmaker and want to bring these stories to life and even be a writer as well? Like it's not a ton of times that you see. I mean, you see directors write films and everything. Like you see that, but like you have people that are specifically writing scripts, and they sell these scripts to producers. I just interviewed Spider Dabrowski, who does that. He lives in LA and he does that. But it's writing a story and then, bringing it to producers to get it directed by you is another story. But coming from the roots of theater, how did that journey take place? How did that transition take place into filmmaking? Like how were you doing theater when you were younger, and then kind of decided that you wanted to create some art through filmmaking as you grew older, or like how did that look like for you, or did it
I
kind of
think
all just melt together?
kind of. I mean, I was always really, really. I wasn't got creative and enjoyed. I've always loved films and TV. Never really theatre as a rule. Uh, but I was asked, would I fancy doing it by a friend of mine who was directing a theatre show. I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. I haven't done drama for a very long time. And I'll see how it went. And I really, really enjoyed it. Being on stage, being the centre of attention, as most actors. So we did it, and then I did another one about a year later, the same group. Um, and it just sort of spiraled then. And someone else said, "Oh, could you come and be in this TV show we're making? Because we need someone who can do a broad American accent," which I kind of was able to do. But it applies to men. So I had to do. We did that, and then I met some really wonderful people. And then I went to this production company and said, "I've written a script in lockdown. It would make quite a good film." And they said, "Well, let's have a look at it." And they said, "Do you know what? It would make a really good stage play." I said, "Okay,
Okay.
let's make it into a stage play." Then the second COVID hit, and we couldn't do theatre anymore. So they said, "Let's turn it back into a film." So we turned it back into a film, um, and that was when it really started to take off because myself and this production company were talking. Well, if we could turn this into a film and do it ourselves with the content we got, it could be really, really good. And that's why we went with 13th Day, and it's got some fundamental problems around lighting and sound in some places, which are some of the mistakes that you make and some of the mistakes you learn from. But overall, it's a good storyline. The actors were really good, and we've learned from the other mistakes that we made. So it's sort of enabled us to push on with this one really well, actually.
Okay.
It's all
Yeah.
just snowballed, really.
Sure, exactly. The fact that you wanted 13th Day to be a stage play. Is that what you're saying?
But the director of the production company wanted
Okay.
it to be a theatre
Okay,
stage
gotcha.
play.
Gotcha.
We probably could still do that. But it's
Yeah.
the card.
Well, I mean, the fact that you took that dream for it to become a stage play, or took his dream for it to become a stage play and turn it into a film rather than let COVID just kind of stop you from doing that. That's awesome. I mean, the determination there, saying, "Oh, this pandemic is stopping us from going into the theater and putting on this production, having rehearsals with people around." That I mean, you can't like meet with people, obviously. So, being able to turn it into a film and still create that art, regardless of what boundaries you had, or what, obstacles you had. That's amazing. A lot of people found their craft, found their love, released their first song, first whatever, during the pandemic, because we all just had all this time inside and we wanted to stay sane. We wanted to stay, just alive. We were all just doing our best to continue finding community where we could, regardless of what the pandemic was bringing. So I love that you guys took that story and brought it to life in a film. I haven't actually watched it yet. I would love to. Where can I watch it? Could I get it on Blu-ray?
It'll be out in the States in Blu-ray between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay, let me put that
Is
into
the
my
idea.
notes. Okay, sweet.
Um, so the distribution company Darkside are releasing it, putting it distributed sort of for that time period. I know that in US and Canada. I'm not sure about anywhere else yet.
Okay.
With It's with their sales team to do. So we was on Amazon Prime. We've taken it down because no one wants to buy a film that's already on Amazon Prime. So we may go back on there in the future, but it just depends on how worldwide distribution goes.
Yeah, I'm always curious for Amazon Prime. If you release a film for free, do you get like, I mean, do you get royalty from it? Like when people watch it, is there like a certain amount of clicks that you have to get to? I mean, obviously it's going to be a lot because I've released songs and I understand like how the music streaming world works.
Yeah.
You get like a third of a cent per, it's like crazy. It's really crazy. But does it work a similar way for like Amazon Prime, like for other independent creators that want to release films? I just want them to understand kind of how that world works, because the system, the entertainment industry is I would say very much kind of built against independent creators, and it takes a lot of determination and passion to really put out a project and see success from it. People do it all the time and it's awesome, but what does that kind of logistically look like?
So Prime, you can no longer upload free content to Prime unless you're one of their preferred distributors.
Mm,
So that's a bit of a pain, but it does
yeah.
mean that you can release pretty much anything on Prime at a cost. So even if you put together a short film or a little mini episode, wherever you want, you can get it up there, as long as it meets certain content requirements. Um,
Hmm.
and then you charge. So 13th Day of Christmas was 99p to buy, um, if people wanted to. Now we figured out in the end that it wasn't necessarily how much the film was; it was more that it's uh, that you had to pay. So the barrier to payment was more important than the actual cost of it. So I think if you're an independent filmmaker, I think if you stick a film on there for 1.99, you'll get just as many people watch it as you would if it was 99p, because it's more that having to go and click and then click again is the barrier rather than spending sequence.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's probably the biggest thing I'd say is just get stuff on there and get stuff out there for people to watch. It's not going to change the world unless you get it really well advertised, a lot of people watching it. But for me, at this point, it's about reputation, it's about people wanting to work with me on projects, and people seeing my ability as a filmmaker and as an actor.
Yeah, so interesting. You said about releasing a film and changing the world, right? Everybody
Yeah.
everybody wants to rule the world, that good old 80s song. But how, the way that you've created, the way that you've told your story, told the stories that you've written, is you said you want to make an impact on the audience member. You want for someone to watch it and be impacted however you've kind of spun that in the narrative of the film, or the novel with the script. I would, it's it's such a task to try and change the world with your art and with your work, especially as a small creator. But I mean, the way that you are trying to get films out there, and kind of change the world, do you have that sort of goal with the films that you write? So like with Legacy, is it really like I want people to enjoy this film, have fun? Or is there like a deeper meaning that you want for people to come out, of their living room watching it on Blu-ray, or on whatever streaming platforms it comes out on? Do you want them to finish the film and, be left with a certain feeling? because changing the world, it's not going to happen overnight, so we all just have to like do our part in telling our stories to kind of shape them and mold them, mold the world. But do you have like a story or a feeling that you want the audience member to be left with? And if you don't want to talk about that now, you want someone to watch the film and see it for themselves, that's totally fine, because that's how art works. It's different for everybody. But obviously I feel like that's kind of a maybe a difficult question, just because it's is it just a film that you want people to have fun watching? Is that the at the end of the day what you want it to be?
I want people to get to the end of it and want to see more and want to see another one.
Okay.
Um, but my overarching objective is for someone to watch that film and see one of the actors and give them a really well paid job so I can elevate their career.
Okay.
So that Tony, who's a fantastic actor, if someone watches that and goes, wow, he should have a job in doing a TV series over here, and we can make a lot of money. For me, that would be the most rewarding thing, to give someone a leg up to be able to
Yeah.
be seen by the rest of the world. That's where I'm. If, if anything else happens off the back of it, then fantastic. But if just one of these guys gets the leg up and gets an opportunity to do something a bit bigger, then my job. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you're in it for others, and that you're
well,
here
don't get me
to.
wrong. If someone offers me a job, I'll take it. Obviously,
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you gotta take what's offered to you, take what you deserve. But that's really great that your goal in this is to tell a unique tale, a unique story, with legacy, especially as you've written it, and you're wanting it to get out there and for people to see it. But I love the fact that you really just like love seeing other people successful, because I'm very much a similar way. I The reason why I created this platform and this community of artist apparel is because I I know what it feels like, the accomplishment of releasing a song, and I want for others to feel that same accomplishment. And I love that you find your accomplishment in seeing other people accomplished. I'm very similar. I think that's at the root. That's just humility and just being humble, and I really like that. I think that it takes a lot to not let, especially a lot of success, kind of inflate your head, give you a big head. And of course, maybe if legacy pops off, I hope to see you're still staying humble. But
absolutely.
I would love to see, you guys make another one, because this one does do well. And I would love for you to be able to get those actors back that you have in legacy, because if you put this out and someone offers them a job, they're going to be like, oh, sorry, Dan, I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to make it to, the sequel or the prequel. But, obviously there's plenty of actors out there. You can get someone, but,
Yeah.
I just love that you find accomplishment in seeing other people accomplished. I think that's a really admirable thing, and you should be proud of yourself for having that sort of. But don't be too proud of yourself. No, I'm kidding. You should be proud of yourself for kind of for having that outlook on it. So, just thank you for being a creator in that realm. Just wanting to see others successful, because it's not all about yourself at the end of the day. It's not all about me at the end of the day.
Thank you for having us on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, I was down to keep going, talk about 13th Day of Christmas. That was just a little side note of of you're awesome type of thing. Yeah. The just really quick, this film, I was intrigued by like just the an edge of your seat thriller that will grip you from the first minute, that tackles the mindset of the sane and the insane. A must-see movie. Sounds a lot like Dr. Jekyll and your take on him, just like the inner turmoil. But 13th Day of Christmas, what was that influenced by?
Um, lockdown, really. The thought of everyone being trapped inside their own heads and not being able to escape it, all of a sudden made me realise that there's probably a lot of people struggling with how they interpret life all of a sudden, because they can't go and see their friends, they can't go and spend time doing the things they need to do. They haven't got any escapism. So everyone's trapped inside their own heads, and some people's heads are quite a scary place. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that sort of inspired the thought process of um, how do you battle mental health? And we all battle mental health every single day. It's some people do it better than others, and some people have more challenges than others. But we all
Yeah.
have it. And I think that really inspired to sort of tell the story and figure out how to try and get that story out there to people, and how best placed are we to resolve those issues in our head.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, during COVID, it was just such a big issue. It really came to light, came to the surface, the struggles that people face with mental health, and those kind of stigmas of maybe not talking about it, were a lot of, in a sense, a lot of them are broken, which is a beautiful thing. It's a great thing that people feel more comfortable talking about their mental health. But this contribution to that conversation of 13th Day of Christmas, I think is really great. And even if the concept of self-doubt and everything aren't completely like at the forefront of the film, it's still something that people are going to get from it. And I'm really excited to watch both 13th Day of Christmas and Legacy whenever they come out. So yeah, so we got Legacy coming up. Is that coming out in the fall?
Yes, that should be the fall. We'll be able to see it. I'm not sure in what guise, whether it be online or DVD, but we hope.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll put everything in the link of this podcast whenever it does come out. I'll just edit it and, refix it and everything. But in terms of, following Dan on social media, on Instagram, he's Dan underscore Stagram 13, and Twitter, he's Dan Brothers 13. I'll also have that in the description. Everybody check out Legacy once it does come out. Thank you so much for being on here. Dan, I really appreciate it. Appreciate you making the time, pushing through the carnival struggle and your battery dying and everything. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us here on Crossroads, man.
No, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really good to meet you.
Yeah, it's awesome to meet you too. Let's keep in touch. I'd love to hear how the journey continues. But everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here again, Dan. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast. And everyone, check out his socials in the links in the description. Follow him on all the socials, and check out 13th Day of Christmas and Legacy once they do come out here in the States and everywhere in the world. Even in Antarctica. Anyways, everybody, have a great day. Keep on telling your story. Thank you so much, Dan, and we'll see you next week.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers.